Welcome back to the show, everybody. I want to continue a discussion that we've had a couple times now about promotion and photography. And this is interesting because we did a show a couple weeks ago called Competing with the Cat Photos. And this was kind of a tongue-in-cheek title, and it was kind of funny. And we were talking about, how as photographers, a lot of times, the understanding of social media and how we use that to promote our own work is really kind of difficult. And I'm going to start this off because I want to equate with, my title is What Would Ansel Tweet? And I want to talk about the historical perspective of this just a little bit. And if you consider Ansel Adams, who is the household name as far as photographers go. He is the Johann Sebastian Bach of photography, and pretty much everybody knows who Ansel Adams is, or was. And, if you consider Ansel's time, where he came from and the group of photographers that were around at that time, he was part of the Southern California School of Photography. He was very good friends and colleagues with people such as Edward Weston, Brett Weston, Edward's son, people like Imogen Cunningham, even Wynn Bullock. And this was, a group of photographers that knew each other. They did shows together. They got together socially for dinner and traded work and were critiques and colleagues and friends. And, even if you consider Ansel in the bigger spectrum of what was going on in photography in the world, there's a lot of photographers who, and this is in no way, shape, or form a slam on Ansel. I think Ansel has a wonderful place in the history of photography and is deserving to be as known as he is. But when you consider some of the other people who were around at that time, there's a lot of people who did much broader range of style, much deeper work on an emotional level and maybe a conceptual level. And Ansel, going down in history as one of the greatest photographers of all time, it's not that he didn't deserve that, but why is he up there when some of these other people that are certainly deserving of being up there among the household names and the greatest photographers of all time? What is that difference? And one of the biggest differences, I feel, historically, is that Ansel Adams really understood the impact and the importance of promotion. I think another thing I can say about Ansel that is a testament to his success is that Ansel understood where his own strengths were. Now, you consider during Ansel's time, there was no internet. To advertise and get the word out about your work was very difficult and very time consuming. And many of you may or may not know that Ansel actually had a full-time publicist. He hired a guy named Bill Turnage, and paid him a full-time salary, and Bill still, I believe, headed the Ansel Adams estate, but he was his full-time promoter. He worked hard to get his name in papers and his work seen and galleries interested, and this is why, to this day, because Bill Turnage did such an amazing job on that, that Ansel is still, when you go to a gallery that deals in historic work, Ansel's prints sell for $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 and up, and depending on how big it is, what the edition is, and they did an immense job of self-promotion with Ansel's work. And Ansel didn't have access to the internet, and his solution to that was to hire somebody full-time to do it. If you speed forward into the day we live now, you guys have access to an amazing set of tools that, for free, if you understand how to get a handle on things and understand the language and the way to work on each platform, you have better promotion than Ansel ever had that is free that you can do yourself. And we talked a little bit about this when we were talking about our episode of Competing with the Cat Photos. And I think that photographers, and I think artists in general, we have a harder time promoting our own work. And I think the tendency is that we tend to put work online and it feels like we're just throwing photos out there and we're kind of lost in a sea of pictures. And a lot of these things that people told me they felt was the issue that they had when they were trying to promote themselves online. So what I want to do is follow up on that today. And we're just going to take Twitter today. And I want to look at Twitter. I think it's one of the more complex of all the social media platforms in terms of what you're going to get out of it and what you put into it and how to understand it. So without further ado, let's head over today and let's see what Ansel Adams might tweet. So we're going to look at Twitter today, and Twitter is really interesting to me because I think of all the social media platforms, the big ones, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter to me is by far the most complex and the most, you can go really deep with Twitter, and I think also it's really difficult for people to understand how to use it. And if you want to have success on Twitter, I hear people complain about Twitter specifically a lot because they say things like, when I put a link to my portfolio or I put an image, I really don't get any interaction. I feel like I'm just throwing photos out there. And so a lot of things I want to talk about today are going to, if you understand how to use Twitter, you're going to have more success, you're going to have more engagement, and you're going to have just, more response to what you're trying to do on here. And it's really important to understand. A lot of this stuff may seem very basic that I'm talking about today, but I encourage you when you're done watching this is to go look at your own Twitter account. Little things like making sure your biography's filled out correctly, your profile image is up. It's amazing to me how many people will follow me on Twitter, and then I go to see if I want to follow them back, and there's no information at all. They have the default egg for their profile picture. Even worse, they don't have a bio filled out. Even worse than that, they don't have a link to their website, so I can't tell anything about them. And so, if you want to have success on Twitter, you need to pay attention to these things, and it's really important. We're going to dig deeper than that as well, and I'll take you through that right now. So on the homepage here, we have this huge stream of tweets here, which, to me, I already have 83 new tweets since I've brought this page up, and I think the latest stats that I saw show that Twitter has, I think, of all their users, about 750 tweets a second. That is a lot, folks. That is a ton of tweets. And, Twitter's whole shtick is that you have a very limited little space that you can write text in. It's limited to a certain amount of characters, and 140 to be specific. When I click in here, I've got 140, and it keeps a counter. If I start composing a tweet, it starts counting down. So that's a lot of information, even in little chunks. The other thing is you can see that I follow almost 6,000 people on here. And this stream doesn't make any sense to me because it's just the fire hose, if you will, of people I follow. So we're going to talk about how to drill down into that a little bit. And it's really important to understand Twitter on two fronts. Twitter is a conversation. It is a social platform. So if you're just up talking to no one, that's why you're not getting any feedback or any response or any engagement out of that. You have to give to get. And that's kind of the rule for any social media. And it requires some time to do with it, but it can be very rewarding on both sides, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So anyway, that's our little bio. I can compose a tweet right there. We're going to talk about things you might want to tweet in a second, but just a quick overview. Under that, you have trends, and the trends basically are a list of there are various keywords and use of hashtags, which is kind of the language of Twitter, that start to sort tweets into categories. And this is how people start to make sense of it. So things that are trending right now, like, the number one right now is Cowboys. And so I live in Dallas, and the Dallas Cowboys beat the reigning Super Bowl champions last night, and so that is trending. Ebola, obviously, is a big news item, but let's click on Cowboys here, and you guys can see. We'll keep this light. But as I go down, these are all people tweeting about the Cowboy game last night. So, this is a good way to sort if you're interested in something that's trending, or also compose your own tweets, because I think it's really important to respond to things that are trending, and that is a big key. And I'll give you an example here. A couple of years ago, and this is a very well-known example, but if you haven't heard of it, during the Super Bowl, there was a blackout and the stadium lost power and lights all went out. And so the story goes is that Oreo, as in the Oreo cookie company, did a tweet during that. I'm going to show it to you. The Huffington Post has a story on this. And basically, it was an image that was a stock Oreo image that they put a gradient on, and it says you can still dunk in the dark with an Oreo thing out, or Oreo logo. Under that, the entire tweet was this image plus power out, no problem. And I love this because this is like marketing zen at its finest. There's nothing to sell here. There's nothing to, hey, click here and go to our website or go buy Oreos. The power's, people are not stupid. They don't need you to spell all that out for them. This was just such a great branding move on Oreo's behalf. And as you can see, it got 15,714 retweets and 6,500 favorites. Now, even if you're thinking that, hey, well, it's Oreo, that's a big brand, everybody's heard of it. Yeah, no. I mean, I think that bigger corporations have an even harder time with social media because they can seem very impersonal and non-human at times. And so, therefore, a tweet like this that has this much power to it and is this minimal is really important because that is how they start to personalize it. It's kind of funny, it's tongue-in-cheek, and this got retweeted. They probably got a ton of followers out of this. And these are the kinds of things you want to think about, and how, you guys are photographers, you watch the show. How can you use your own images when there's something that's trending? This will expose you to people that are outside of your followers and the people you follow, and you are going to engage more with Twitter as a whole, and this is going to lead to more followers, more interactivity with your own material, etc. So anyway, it's really important to understand that. And anyway, so moving back over here, again, these are ways to drill down and kind of sort the content. Another thing that's really important is making use of what they call lists. And for me, this is what makes Twitter usable. If I go under my profile up here and I click on lists, when I follow people, it gives you the option of putting them into a list. And so, for instance, I have one for my friends. And if I click on friends, this filters everything down to just people I put in this list. So these are friends and family. So if I just want to see what people I know that are doing and I want to use social media in that way, I can. And lists are a big help on that. A lot of apps enable lists as well that you might use if you're not using the Twitter website. So that's important to understand. Another important thing to understand, we were talking a little while ago about hashtags. And, hashtag typically is that pound sign, and then, my friend Wade down here, how about them pound cowboys, right? And so that gets you trending. It also gets you searchable up here in the search box when you search for Twitter. And I'll give you an example of something that I used recently. And if you were looking for work or you want people to understand your photography, when you do it, this is a good way to be able to expose yourself to a broader audience than the people who follow you. And if I go up here, and let's go back under lists, and I'm going to give you my example. A couple months ago, I was called to do a job, and it looked like there was going to be some motion design involved. The job didn't end up happening, but at the time I thought it was, and motion design is not something that I do. And so it's something that I would want to hire somebody that does it a lot better than me. And so what I did is I spent a little bit of time on Twitter, and I was using the hashtag pound motion design. And I'm going to scroll down here because the tweet that came up, and I started following this guy and other people he followed, and it led me to more motion designers, was this one. Christopher Levin, who I don't know, but he wrote this tweet, says, "Hello, good people. I've updated my pound motion design reel." And look, it embedded the key image here or the keyframe from the video in, has a link. And I remember seeing that thinking, here we go. I'm going to make a list. I'm going to put this guy in it. And had the job gone through, I would have contacted him. And, this is really important to understand because as a photographer, if you are going to put a tweet out to your portfolio, one, look at how well this is composed. It's very minimal. It doesn't give you too much text. Excellent use of a hashtag of motion design because that's exactly what I was searching for. He also put two more hashtags in here, animation and design. It gives him a little more reach that way. And also the way the media embeds. It wasn't just a text tweet. This is something that's going to draw your eye in when you do search and a bunch of tweets turn up. It's really important to do. It's really important to understand that, like, for instance, if you use Instagram, it's really easy to cross post to media. For instance, if I'm posting to Instagram, there's a little button that I can push that will also put my Instagram stuff on Twitter. And it's important to understand that it only puts a link to that photo in. It's going to promote your Instagram account. It's worth the 5 extra minutes max that it's going to take, or the 2 minutes or whatever, to go ahead and post to both platforms the same image, just so you have the media come up on Twitter. And I can't really emphasize that enough. That's a mistake that I made for a long time, and I'm not doing it anymore. So I used to just, auto post to all platforms. It kind of works between Instagram and Facebook, but, the image doesn't come through on Twitter, and that's unfortunate, and you need to understand that's what it's doing. Like, the one above it here's another motion design reel, and he just put a link to his Vimeo feed here. That would have worked a little better had maybe, and I'm not real sure how to do this, it was a media embed from YouTube or something like that where it would put the video in here. And that's important to do. He made my list too, so it's not, actually he was retweeted by this other guy. So anyway, all that to say, it's really important to understand. Also, real quick, I want to talk about when you do tweet, what kinds of things do you tweet? And the best way to do this is to go look at people who are successful on Twitter. I want to pull up a profile. This is David Hobby, and most of you probably know who he is. He goes by the handle Strobist on the internet. He has a blog that discusses flash photography. David's an excellent photographer, and go pull up his feed and see what kinds of things make him successful on here. And you can see when you scroll down his Twitter feed here that it's not, hey, look at my portfolio and everything. There's a lot of media. There's a lot of images that come up. This is going to catch people's eye when they see you in other people's feeds, if they're doing a search, things of that nature. The other thing too is it's not, hey, look at me, look at my work all the time. And that's a problem that people don't understand, is it's not just a big self-promo soapbox. If it will work that way if you can blend that with things that will personalize you a little more. So for instance, there's a tweet here, right, with Jimmy Page from BBC News. It has nothing to do with photography. It's creative process, and he probably likes Led Zeppelin. And it starts telling me more about David Hobby's personality. It might be something that I find in common with him. And so when you see tweets like that more commonly than you do portfolio stuff, it's going to tell me more about who this person is. And then when he does tweet his portfolio, I'm probably going to be interested in clicking on it because I know who David Hobby is, right? And so if it's somebody that you don't know who's just tweeting their work all the time, I'm not even really interested in following them back because I don't know who they are. And so I hope that's kind of a zen moment for some of you that, have been complaining that you feel like it's just putting images out into space. Be personable on there. Tweet other things. Sometimes they're photography related, like this next tweet. He wrote, technically, I'm in college. Mom would be proud. Well, here's a course that's using Strobist in their curriculum. So he tweeted about that. Doesn't relate directly to his photography, but it tells me about David Hobby. He retweets other people, and this is important to do a lot as well. And he retweeted a tweet that somebody mentioned him in. And this is where you start to get engagement going on with your tweets and your images. And, you know, if you use this little @ sign and then somebody's handle, what it will do is if I tweet, for instance, at Strobist, and then I put a message in there, it will contact David Hobby and he'll see it next time he logs in under notifications. And people do this with me all the time. When somebody does this with you, it's important to respond back. Now, we all get busy, and I get a lot of them, and maybe it's during a day where I'm filming the show or working on photography stuff, and I don't see them. And so don't ever take it personally if somebody doesn't immediately respond. But, you know, if you had a question for David Hobby, why don't you write at Strobist, ask a question, and he may retweet it. In this case, somebody did some Halloween portraits. Or maybe he would answer your question. If he doesn't respond, you know, maybe do it again later. Don't spam him, but you know, don't give up either, because we all get busy. You never know. But this is kind of how communication works on Twitter. I try to tweet people back as much as possible, and I apologize. Sometimes I don't always make it, but you know, don't ever take it personally. And I never take it personally if somebody doesn't follow me back either, because I don't need to be a follower of theirs to do the @ reply, you know. So if you do at Ted Forbes, I'll see it. You don't have to have me following you back to do that. So that's something to understand too. But you know, all of what I'm saying here is like ways to engage with Twitter. And I'll give you another example. Like this morning, let's go over to my Twitter feed, and I will show you. If I go home and let's go see my tweets, and I put a tweet up right here, and I tweeted an image, and I did not do it from Instagram. I did it directly from Twitter because I wanted the image to embed. And this is a photo from our Atlanta meetup this weekend. And after dinner, we went outside, and my friend John Mason, who was a tremendous help to me all weekend, who lives in Atlanta. He's an awesome guy, an amazing photographer. Well, his Twitter handle is at John Mason. Well, I didn't take this photo. He did. And so I gave him a credit. And I said, thanks for an awesome meetup this weekend. And I wrote in parentheses, photo by at John_Mason_. And I also used Atlanta meetup and photography. And you can see that, you know, I tweeted this right before I started filming here, but I have 4 favorites, you know, people who have favorited this, and I can click and see who they are. And John Mason was one of them. So he saw that I mentioned him in that tweet, and he responded. So John and I have now had, you know, a very verbal one, but we've now had engagement on Twitter. And so the more of this kind of thing that you can do, and you can get involved in Twitter, the more it's going to work for you in the end, the more information that you're interested in will present itself to you, and the more people will engage with the information that you're putting up as well. Images, tweets, quotes, whatever it is that you're interested in, videos. And that's how you're going to get more out of Twitter and understand how to engage in it. And that is so important to understand. And it's amazing how many people don't get that. The other thing, and I know this is dead obvious, but I want to point it out to you guys. Go look at your profile page right now and see that you have everything filled out. They allow for a wall image up here. I used one from the meetup that I thought was kind of funny, where we were joking about the Godfather because I'm sitting at the head of the table. But also important is they allow for a profile image. You might keep that image consistent across all your social media engagement platforms. That's a way you can brand yourself if you're interested in that. But have a photo in there. Take the time. It says I care. Put a profile image in there. Do a small bio. Twitter allows for it. It also allows you to put links in the biography. Now, they will allow you to link to one website too, but make sure it's filled out. I have this all pointing to the art of photography. So one thing I might want to do is this link that I'm allowed to have within the bio, I might put to my personal work website or something of that nature. You've got to understand that this is really important to do. If somebody doesn't know me and they go to my profile, this is the difference of whether they're going to follow you or not. And this is, you know, a make or break deal with success on Twitter. If you have the egg that they give you by default when you sign up for an account, you know, don't do that. Make sure you have a profile image in there. It's really important. So anyway, it's important to see, and you know, do yourself a favor, and like I said, go take a little audit on your own Twitter account. Look at what types of things you're tweeting. Look at how you're engaging with it. How many @ replies do you do? How many people do you retweet? You know, are you giving in all of this? Because if you do that, people are going to get to know you. When you do tweet, are you always tweeting your own work and kind of taking it from a very self-centered standpoint, or are you having a conversation with people? You know, Twitter is like the ultimate internet cocktail party. You know, you show up, and if I sit there and talk about myself all night, people are going to get tired of that, and they're not going to want to talk to me. If you have a conversation with somebody and then mention something you've done as a part of that, it has much more context, it makes more sense, and that's how you're going to have success on Twitter. I hope most of this was obvious to you, and I hope that, you know, this makes sense, and start devoting some time, you know, whether that's once a week or twice a week, once a day, however much time you have, into actually engaging with something like Twitter and see what it can do for you and see what you're going to get out of it. And you're going to find that it's going to do a lot for your work as well, but you have to participate in order for that to happen. So anyway, we'll touch on social media in future episodes as well. Once again, this has been another episode of The Art of Photography, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.